My name is Bilal Khan. I'm 30 years old, and today I live in London. But this isn't where my story began. It began in the heart of Lahore, Pakistan, a city full of dust, prayer, laughter, and shadows. A city where, as a child, I thought faith was the light guiding my life. But instead, something happened that shattered my innocence and changed everything I believed. This is not just a story of pain. It's a story of survival, of searching, of healing. And if you've ever felt betrayed by those who were supposed to protect you, maybe, just maybe, my voice will echo something you've buried too. I grew up in Lahore, in a neighborhood where every crack in the wall had a story, where children flew kites from rooftops and the call to prayer danced through the narrow streets like a lullaby. My childhood was not one of wealth or luxury, but it was full of warmth. My parents weren't perfect, but they loved in their own quiet ways. My father, a cloth merchant with rough hands and a firm voice, saw in me a promise. "You'll carry Allah's words, Bilal," he told me, his hand heavy on my shoulder. And I believed him. I was proud. I was only 8 years old, but I thought my future was golden. I thought my faith would lift me, protect me, give me purpose. When they sent me to the madrasa, I didn't resist. I thought I was walking toward heaven, not into the heart of something that would tear my soul apart. I remember the dusty ride through the city, my small bag on my lap, my heart pounding with excitement. The madrasa was a low building behind a high wall, its courtyard dry and cracked. There were boys everywhere, some older, some younger, all carrying wooden slates and quiet hope. The air was thick with ink and sweat and unspoken fears. But I didn't see that then. I saw purpose. I saw a path to God, and I wanted to be good. Malvi Rahim greeted us on the first day. His white turban was tight, his beard dyed orange with henna, and when he smiled, it felt like something sacred. He took my slate and said, "Bilal Khan, you'll shine here." My father stood beside me, beaming. My mother wiped her eyes but smiled, and I stood there, small, nervous, but ready. I was a child who believed that faith was the answer to every question. I didn't know yet that sometimes those who speak for God wear masks. I didn't know yet how dangerous a lie wrapped in scripture could be. The first days were full of routine. We woke before dawn for Fajr prayers, our small hands shivering under cold water as we made wudu. We sat cross-legged in rows, reciting surahs with voices that trembled more from cold than fear. But there was peace in the rhythm, in the idea that Allah was listening, that I was being shaped into someone who mattered. I memorized verse after verse, proud of the nods from Malvi Rahim, eager for his praise. At night, we ate watery dal, roti that crumbled in our hands, and lay down on straw mats beneath a creaking fan. I missed my sister's giggle, my mother's lullabies, but I told myself I was on the right path. What I didn't understand was that the right path shouldn't feel so heavy. I didn't understand why some boys cried at night, their sobs muffled into pillows, why they looked away when Malvi Rahim passed. I didn't understand the shadows in their eyes. I thought they were homesick. I thought they were weak. And then came the night when the moon was hidden, and I was the one he called. "Bilal, come. We'll practice alone." My feet were bare against the cold tiles, my heart still full of trust. That was the last night I saw the world the way a child should. In that small room behind the mosque, with one flickering bulb and a silence too loud, everything changed. His breath was sharp with pawn. His eyes weren't kind anymore. "Don't speak," he said. And I didn't. I couldn't. What happened next is still a blur, but my body remembers even when my mind tries to forget. I walked back to my mat that night, different. Not just afraid, altered. The words of prayer stuck in my throat. I asked Allah why, but the silence felt like betrayal. I was 8. I thought I had done something wrong. I thought Allah was punishing me. And here's the part that hurts the most to admit. I went back. Again and again. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't know how not to. He told me it was our secret, that Allah would punish me if I spoke, that my family would be ashamed, and I believed him. That's the terrifying power of authority wrapped in divinity. It can make you believe that silence is holiness, and suffering is faith. But let me tell you this, silence is not faith, and your suffering is not divine. If someone told you that your pain is part of God's plan, I'm here to say, that was never God speaking. If this part of my story already feels close to something you've felt, I need you to keep listening, because what started in that small room didn't end there. It followed me through my teenage years, into adulthood, into the way I saw myself in mirrors, into the way I closed my heart whenever someone mentioned God. And if you're watching this because you're searching for healing, or because you've never told your truth, stay with me. Because what was taken from us doesn't define us, but what we choose to do with the truth, that can set us free. After that night, I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. I tried to hold on to the rituals, to the verses, to the parts of faith that once brought me peace. I sat in the courtyard with my slate on my lap, pretending to recite, mouthing words that now felt foreign. But my chest was tight, my throat locked. I couldn't meet Malvi Rahim's eyes in the daylight, and yet when he walked past, my body still tensed. My heart still hoped he wouldn't stop, but he always did. A pat on the back, a whispered praise, a smile that now made my skin crawl. He was still the teacher during the day, respected, feared, revered, and at night, he became the shadow that stole my breath. The boys around me knew something. They didn't ask, but they knew. And I knew they knew, because they had the same haunted silence in their eyes. I stopped writing home, or when I did, I wrote lies. I'm learning a lot. I miss you. I'm happy. Words my mother would read aloud to my sister, her voice full of pride. They didn't know that the boy who used to chase kites in the courtyard was gone. I had become a ghost in my own body. I barely ate. I slept with my back to the wall. I counted the cracks in the ceiling to avoid closing my eyes. And every time I heard the creak of the floor, every time the door handle turned, my breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But the fear was louder than my will. What if they didn't believe me? What if they said I was lying? Worse, what if they blamed me? When my parents visited once, I almost told them. My mother hugged me tight, her hands warm against my cold skin. "You're getting so tall, my lion," she said. I looked at her and opened my mouth. Nothing came out. My father was speaking with Malvi Rahim, smiling, shaking his hand, thanking him for shaping me into a man of God. And I couldn't speak. The shame was a noose. The guilt, a stone on my tongue. I saw the way my father admired him. I saw the trust in his eyes, and I couldn't destroy that illusion. So I lied. Again. I smiled. I lowered my gaze. I played the part of the good son. And when they left, I sat in the courtyard and cried, dust clinging to my wet cheeks. I was still just a child, trying to survive in silence. The abuse didn't stop. It became a pattern. A ritual darker than the prayers we were taught to recite. Always at night. Always in that same room. And every time a part of me slipped further away, I stopped praying. I knelt. Yes, because I had to. But my prayers were empty. Words without soul. Movements without faith. I looked at the Quran and felt nothing. No connection. No light. Just weight. A burden. I started to ask questions. Quietly, in my mind. Dangerous questions. Why doesn't Allah stop him? Why does everyone say this is holy? Why is silence the only answer I'm given? But no one could answer. Or maybe I never asked out loud because deep down I already knew. They wouldn't listen. One day, during a recitation, I froze. The words of Surah Al-Nas slipped from my memory. I stared at the slate in front of me, trembling. Malvi Rahim's stick struck my hand, fast, sharp. The other boys gasped. Pain flared through my fingers. "Focus, Bilal," he shouted, his voice cold, eyes narrow. Later that day, he gave me a sweet in the courtyard, his fingers brushing my shoulder longer than they needed to. "You'll do better," he said with that same soft smile. I nodded, not because I believed him, not because I trusted him, but because my body had learned to survive. Say yes. Stay quiet. Be small. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, the sound of the fan above me like a heartbeat. I whispered my sister's name like a prayer, not to Allah, just to feel safe again. By the end of the year, I wasn't a child anymore. I was a shell, a shadow of the boy who arrived with wide eyes and a wooden slate. My eyes had dulled, my shoulders had sunk. My heart no longer fluttered at the sound of the azan. It shrank. My world had narrowed to fear and survival. The madrasa was no longer a place of learning. It was a prison, and I didn't know how to escape. I had nowhere to run. Home felt too far. And even if I reached it, what would I say? How do you tell your parents that the man they trusted with your soul used your body like it was nothing? I carried that weight alone, heavier than any Quran I'd ever memorized. And every day, I slipped deeper into a silence that felt like drowning. I was 12 when I left the madrasa. The day I walked out for the last time, the sky was gray, heavy with dust. My parents didn't know what had happened. They welcomed me back like a boy who had achieved something great. My mother cooked my favorite meal. My father told the neighbors with pride. But I wasn't proud. I was broken. I slept in my old bed under the neem tree's shade. But even that peace had been stolen. My sister still laughed. My father still prayed. My mother still whispered, "Be brave, my lion." But I wasn't brave. I wasn't anything. Just a boy with a secret too heavy for his age. And in the silence of our courtyard, I began to hate the faith that had failed me. Back in the world outside the madrasa, I tried to wear a mask. At school, I answered questions correctly, solved math problems quickly, and kept my eyes on the blackboard. I was good at studies because books didn't ask me why I flinched when someone raised their voice. They didn't ask me why I never stayed behind after class. I sat alone during breaks, eating slowly or not at all, my mind drifting. The mosque was harder to avoid. Every Friday my father would take me there, proud to walk beside his son. I knelt with the others, forehead to the mat, lips whispering verses I no longer believed. I felt nothing. Not peace, not connection, just distance and disgust. Because in every bearded face I saw the monster I'd left behind. Then I began seeing others like me, boys who carried silence like a second skin. I recognized it in their eyes, their shoulders, their quietness. One boy from school, Imran, sat beside me under the banyan tree one afternoon and said softly, "I was in a madrasa too." He didn't say more. He didn't need to. I nodded, and he nodded back. We never spoke of it again, but something shifted in me. The shame didn't vanish, but it cracked, just slightly. Maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe the pain I carried wasn't a curse, but a common wound. But even knowing that didn't make it easier to live. I still hated the mosque. I still avoided prayer. And when my father slapped me one evening for skipping Maghrib, I didn't cry. I just stood there, numb, empty. Zob was my light, my sister, my anchor. She'd sit with me in the courtyard, drawing henna patterns or reading stories. "What's the moon made of, Bilal?" she'd ask, her eyes full of wonder. And I'd lie. Angel dust, maybe, just to see her smile. But even her joy couldn't erase the darkness I lived with. When she turned 14, I saw fear in her eyes. Our father had chosen a man, an older man, a marriage arranged like a transaction. And I watched the same silence that had choked me begin to wrap around her too. I wanted to stop it. I wanted to scream, but I didn't know how. I had run from my own pain. I hadn't saved myself. How could I save her? In Karachi, I thought I'd start over. A new city, new noise, new faces. I worked in a call center. Cold building, fluorescent lights, English greetings on the phone that didn't feel like my own voice. My roommates were loud. The air smelled like smoke and sweat. I drank to sleep. Whiskey numbed the nightmares but never erased them. I wrote in my notebook, not prayers, not poems. Rage. Why didn't Allah stop him? Why am I dirty? Why does no one speak? The pages became my only place of truth. One night at a chai stall, a man named Faisal sat across from me. "You ever go to a madrasa?" he asked, eyes sharp. I nodded. "Bad things happen there," he said. And that was it. He knew. And I knew. And we didn't need more words. Faisal introduced me to others. In Liari, in a small room that smelled of fish and dust, I met men like me. Survivors. Some cried, some shouted, some just sat, silent and heavy. One spoke of a teacher in Peshawar, another of being locked in a storage room. I didn't tell my story at first. I just listened, but every voice felt like my own. Their pain didn't heal mine, but it made it less lonely. And then I heard his name, Malvi Rahim. He was alive, still teaching. A newspaper article praised him. A judge at a Hafiz competition. My hands shook. My mouth went dry. How could a monster be honored? How could I be drowning in shame while he wore respect like a robe? That night I drank until I couldn't stand. I shouted at a co-worker the next day who said clerics were saints. "They're liars!" I screamed. People stared. I didn't care. I saw another imam in the market preaching. A man I knew had abused boys. I couldn't stay silent. "You're a fraud!" I yelled. The crowd turned. "Blasphemy," someone whispered. "In Pakistan, that word could kill you." I ran, heart pounding, breath caught in my throat. I knew I had to leave. My voice had become a threat to my life. Zob wrote me the next day. "I'm scared, Bilal. He's not kind anymore." Her words shattered me. I had fled. I had survived. But I had left her behind in the same fire I escaped from. It was Samuel, a co-worker, who saw me. Not just the angry man I had become, but the boy still bleeding underneath. He was Christian, Pakistani, quiet. One evening, he handed me a paper with words from the Bible. "Come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest." I didn't believe in his God, but I kept the paper, folded it, hid it. One night I dreamed of a man in white, his face hidden, but his voice calm. "Bilal, you are enough," he said. I woke up crying, breathless. I didn't know who he was, but he wasn't Rahim. He wasn't my father. He wasn't the God I had begged for help. He was something else, a whisper in the dark. I left Pakistan under a sky that didn't bless me. My father's final words weren't a goodbye, but a slap. "We protected our honor," he had said, as if that honor hadn't crushed his daughter's freedom and my soul. I hugged Zob one last time. She was pale. She was scared. She was 15 and about to live what I had barely survived. "I'll come back for you," I whispered, even though I didn't know how. My mother cried quietly. She didn't ask me to stay. Maybe she knew that if I did, I would disappear forever. I boarded a plane with a notebook full of pain, a Bible verse folded in my wallet, and a heart full of fear. I wasn't looking for a new faith. I just wanted silence. But even in London, the voices followed me. London was gray, wet, cold. The people didn't stare. The buildings didn't shout. In a way, it was peace. But it was also a kind of loneliness I'd never known. I worked in a warehouse. My hands packed boxes. My thoughts wandered to Lahore's dust, Karachi's chaos, and Zob's silence. My flat was small, shared with men I barely spoke to. The walls were thin, the nights long. The nightmares didn't stop. They changed. Rahim's face blurred, but his breath was always there. I'd wake shaking, sweating, whispering verses I didn't believe. One night, I pulled out the paper Samuel had given me. "I will give you rest." The words didn't heal me, but they didn't scare me either. That was something. I ran into Samuel at a market in Whitechapel. He hugged me. It startled me. Kindness always does when you've known cruelty in holy clothing. We sat and ate nihari in silence. He asked how I was. I didn't lie. "I'm not okay," I said. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift just slightly. He invited me to his church. I refused. "I don't need another God," I told him. He nodded, not offended. "Just tea then," he said. He gave me space. That mattered. He didn't preach. He didn't press. He just stayed close. When someone stays without asking you to change, that's a kind of love too. But curiosity is a quiet flame. One Sunday, I went. Rain soaked my jacket. My heart pounded like a drum. The church was small, warm. The people sang, soft and strong. The pastor spoke of a Jesus who loved the broken, who didn't wait for them to be clean to call them worthy. I sat in the back, hands clenched, jaw tight. But her words found the cracks in me. I left before the hymn ended, but the melody followed me into the street. That night, the dream came again. The man in white. "I see you, Bilal." His voice didn't echo like Rahim's. It calmed. It soothed. And when I woke, for the first time, I didn't cry. Zob's letter came in spring. "I'm free," she wrote. I ran to our aunt's house. I stared at the paper, my hands trembling. She did what I couldn't. She escaped. She broke the silence. She became her own savior. I cried, not for her pain, but because her courage gave me mine. I went to Samuel. I told him everything, about the madrasa, about Rahim, about the shame I still carried. My voice cracked, my body shook, and he listened, not with pity, with presence. "You're not alone, Bilal," he said. That was the first time I believed that might be true. He gave me a Bible. I didn't open it for days. But when I did, it wasn't out of obligation. It was a whisper, a question. What if there's something here for me? I read slowly, about a man who healed with his hands, who forgave without permission, who stood between the broken and their accusers. I didn't understand all of it, but it felt different than anything I'd been told before. The man in white became clearer in my dreams. His eyes kind, his voice still. You are enough. The mosque never said that. The madrasa never whispered that. My own father never spoke those words. But here, they echoed. I didn't convert. Not yet. But I began to show up. At church, in the pews, among people who didn't need me to be fixed to love me. A Nigerian woman, Aisha, told me she had lost a son. Jesus carries what we can't, she said, placing her hand on mine. And I believed her, because she wasn't selling salvation. She was surviving too. The pastor, Mary, asked, "What's holding you back, Bilal?" And the truth is, I didn't know. Fear, maybe. Shame. But her question stayed with me. Every Sunday I sat closer to the front. Every hymn sank deeper into me. It wasn't faith. Not yet. But it was movement. And after years of paralysis, that was a miracle. Today I stand not as a perfect man, but as a healed one. My scars have not disappeared. They still ache sometimes in the quiet moments, still show themselves in the way I pause before trust, in the way I pray with trembling lips. But they no longer define me. I am no longer the boy trapped in that madrasa, no longer the silence in the shadow of a monster. I am Bilal Khan, a survivor, a brother, a son of grace. I walked through fire, through shame, through years of doubting every light I ever believed in. And still, I found a light that did not burn me, a love that called me by name and said, "You are enough." That love has a name. His name is Jesus. If my story reached a place inside you that you've buried or been too afraid to name, I want you to know something simple, something life-changing. You are not alone. Your pain is not too dark for healing. Your past is not too broken for restoration. And your silence does not have to be the end of your story. If you've been hurt by people who used God as a weapon, let me tell you, that was not God. That was not Jesus. The Jesus I met didn't ask me to be holy to be seen. He saw me first. He met me in my hiding place. And if he could love me there, he can love you too. So I'm asking you, not as someone with all the answers, but as someone who finally found peace, to take a step. If you're tired of carrying it alone, if you're desperate for a different ending than the one written by your pain, then open your heart to him. You don't have to be sure. You just have to be willing. Willing to whisper his name. Willing to say, "Jesus, if you're real, show me." I did. And he answered. He didn't erase my past. He walked with me through it. And today, I walk with him. If this story moved you, if it gave you something you weren't expecting, hope, strength, even questions, then don't let this moment pass quietly. Inscribe it in your life. Make it the beginning of your own story. Subscribe to this channel so we can walk this journey together. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And most of all, follow Jesus. Not the version that shamed you, but the one who saves you. The one who calls you enough, even when the world called you unworthy. You were never meant to carry this pain alone. Jesus is calling you, gently, patiently, powerfully, the same way he called me in my darkest hour. This is your invitation, not to religion, but to healing, to a Savior who doesn't demand perfection, but offers grace. I walked away from every God that failed me, and I found the one who stayed. If you want that too, say it now, even quietly, and he'll hear you, just like he heard me. Before I go, I want you to know something important. I see you. I may not know your name, but I know the weight of shame, of secrets, of broken faith. I know how it feels to doubt everything, including yourself. But I also know the freedom that comes when you let Jesus in. Stay connected here. Let this space be a place where healing begins and continues, where we tell our stories not to stay in pain but to move through it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me share the hardest parts of my life with you. It means more than you know. If you ever feel lost, if you ever wonder whether anyone cares, come back here. Watch again. Write to me. Reach out. This is more than a video. This is a door. You just opened it. Now walk through. I'll be waiting on the other side. Until next time, stay strong, stay open, and never forget, you are not alone.